Yo, welcome into another episode of Between the Hedges. Thank y'all for tuning in. Appreciate it, as always, and we always appreciate the support whenever you tune in, whenever you watch. Thank you, thank you. Um, it's another glorious Friday night, just not as late of a Friday night. How are you doing?
Yeah, since I guess since Matthew's not here, maybe we're able to get on a little bit earlier on the Friday night.
Don't tell him that.
But yeah,
Oh,
everything's good. Glad it's the weekend. Good to be back once again.
absolutely. Hello to another weekend. What is it? The second full weekend of the new year. So, very glad about that. We've got a lot of football this weekend with a super wild card weekend for the NFL. I know we're not really an NFL channel, but I definitely will be watching that. So it's exciting. Still a lot of football on. It's not gone. It's just unfortunately it's no longer college football. So.
Yeah, it's not the dogs anymore.
No, it's not our dogs, and we won't get to see them again until spring. But still excited about that. Might have to get to G Day this year.
Yep, sounds like a plan.
So we want to kick it off with some transfer portal updates as far as UGA is concerned, and kind of let
Yep,
you take care of that.
we got another portal edition for the dogs today as Alabama safety Jake Hope uh, announced that he was going to commit to and transfer to UGA this evening. So he's out of Buford, Georgia. He played for Buford High School. One of the top programs in the state there up in Buford. Um, and he redshirted as a freshman. So I guess now technically he's a redshirt freshman going into his sophomore season. So we'll have um, 3 years of eligibility remaining to continue playing. And with him added, that means we have taken in seven total transfers. Um, Jake Pope at safety out of Alabama. You got London Humphreys, the wide receiver out of Vandy. Michael Jackson, wide receiver out of Southern Cal. Colby Young, wide receiver out of Miami. You see a theme there. Three
Wide
wide
receiver.
receivers. Running back Trevor Etienne out of Florida. Thank God he woke up and he's decided he's sick of being a Gator. It's gonna be fun to watch him in red and black. I can tell you that right now. You got defensive lineman Xavier McLeod from South Carolina, and then a long snapper from UCLA, Bo Gardner. So those are the seven additions right now up to date as we speak for you know uh, UGA and transfer portal. Um, and there's no telling if they're finished or not. I mean, I guess if they see somebody out there that they're interested in that they feel will add to the team and make the team better, they'll make room for them.
Well, yeah, definitely. I can see the fallout from Nick Saban retiring just the other day, and then Alabama naming their next head coach and that roster. I can see just more turnover. So I could see us maybe getting a couple to a few more Alabama transfers just because, they're used to Nick Saban and the Nick Saban way. And Kirby's put his own spin on that, but kind of he's absolutely got that duplicated here in Athens. So um, definitely could see those guys saying, I'd like to try to continue on in that." type of program. So would not be surprised to see them, some more of them show up on our roster, or at least on visits if they don't decide to come here.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, you're going to start seeing trickle effect. Since Saban's left, all those guys can enter the portal. They get DeBoer from Washington. Now, all those guys can decide if they want to stay or go. And, once we figure out who Washington's going to hire, it's going to be some other team guy, that may want to pick up and go to a different place. So it's just going to be a never ending cycle right now with these coaches leaving, coming and going until all the dust settles.
But not, I also think that what was his name? Is it McKinstry for
Mm-hmm.
Alabama? Was he also a Buford player?
I do not know. I'd
There was
have to
an
check.
there was another Buford player that should have been a freshman this year for Alabama. I'd keep an eye out for him too, coming back to Georgia, because we recruited him very heavily. Um, and he, like I said, he went to Buford High School. He was a defensive back, just very, very
You
highly
might be
rated.
thinking of the other safety, Downs.
Caleb Downs. Yep, that's it. That's it.
I don't know that
Not,
he's going to leave Alabama. Personally, I don't know that he will, but I guess that it's always a possibility if he, feels like he's not going to be a fit for them anymore, or he was just, wanting to go over to Alabama simply because he wanted to be coached as a DB for, Nick Saban, because that's what Nick took care of on he's a defensive coach and his specialty was the DBs. So that was, and he put plenty of guys in the NFL. So that's the draw, I would imagine, for a DB going to Alabama. And now Nick's no longer there. So I guess maybe he has a decision to make going forward.
yeah,
But
I'd
that would be huge news if he left, and especially if he came to Georgia. Huge news.
yeah. I mean that. I'm not trying to say it'll happen by any stretch, but that would be my sleeper to watch off that
And we do
roster.
have availability of playing time because we lost three DBs to the NFL already.
Yep.
So
I
there's
th
there's definitely holes to fill in the secondary.
I think Kirby, Schumann, Muschamp, all of them would be kind of silly not to at least pick up the phone and say, you thinking about leaving?"
Well, they might, slide into the DMs or something.
Yeah, you got to be covert about it. Star 67, the number or something like that. But it would be worth the shot, I think.
Mhm.
Come on home and play for the dogs. You know, DeBoer, it's not that DeBoer's defenses were terrible, but if you want to be groomed as a defensive back to go to the NFL, you play for Kirby or you play for Nick Saban.
And there's only one of those guys coaching anymore.
Yep.
So, and I'm gonna get a little trivia. Who's who's the name the coaches that are still active that have beaten Kirby Smart since 2018?
Hmm.
Any guesses?
And you're right about saying Kirby Smart. We're not talking because you're saying active, so Nick Saban's beaten him 3 times, but he's no longer coaching.
You want me to give you the answer?
I'm gonna get this.
Well, we can't sit here and wait for everybody to
I'm I
think about it.
wanna I'm gonna say um I wanna say I don't know.
There isn't anybody. Nick Saban was the only one that had beaten Kirby since 2018.
I was gonna say that.
It's a trick question.
Yeah. Well, that's
There
our
is
three.
no active football coach that has beaten Kirby Smart.
That's our three losses in the last three seasons.
So it was Nick Saban. That was it. Now he's retired, so there's nobody. That's amazing.
Not only is it amazing, does that not say that hello, does Georgia not take the next step to be the next dominant
No,
force and dynasty in the sport?
it's already there. It was just extremely unfortunate that I don't even want to bring it up again. I'm tired of talking about it, but we played our worst game, the SEC championship game that we've played in 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the worst. And we still almost beat freaking Alabama, but we didn't. So guess what? We get the L and we get left out. So we don't even get a chance to, defend the crown. And now here we are. We're waiting for next season. So anyway, on to the bigger news of the day.
Yeah, definitely. To the bigger story, the national story is DeBoer to Alabama. So Alabama moved very, very quickly.
Yeah, that was pretty quick, actually.
I think Nick Saban had a lot to do with that. He's moving into kind of like an advisory role, something. He's gonna have some input still. And I think he said, you know, I like what DeBoer's doing. Y'all should definitely give him a call, interview him. But that was a quick interview. I mean, it happened, what, this morning?
I think so. Um,
Because they announced it this afternoon that he's the coach.
yeah.
They're moving forward.
And I mean, let's not be it's a good hire, I think. Um, it because everywhere he's gone, he's done very well.
He just wins.
So, I mean, um, don't sleep on the hire. It's going to be interesting to see because he hasn't coached in the Southeast before. He doesn't have those recruiting ties, and he's not necessarily known as an elite recruiter, which Nick
And
Saban was. And that's how Nick Saban built the team that he, left for DeBoer now. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see if there's any fall off in that regard on the recruiting front because, that, and I know these days that's just one piece of the puzzle for roster management, with the portal and NIL and all that kind of stuff. You got to manage things a lot more than just recruiting and getting high school players into your program and replenishing that talent year after year after year. You're having to re-recruit them and just like we've discussed on our previous shows. So but my point being he's a very good coach. It looks to be from the little bit that I've read about him and gotten to know since he's been, you know, and then more in the national spotlight, taking Washington to the national championship game, and now being named the new coach for Alabama. Um, he's been very successful every step along the way, and he's won national championships at those levels before. So, I mean, shoot, he made it to the national championship game just this, this past one, and if Penix would have had himself a decent night, we might be talking about him being the reigning national championship coach. So you never know.
yeah, but I think everything happens for a reason, right? I mean, you hear that. I don't know that he takes this job if he wins the national championship.
That's probably a good point.
So, it sucks for Washington, it sucks for Penix and DeBoer not having won it with his first opportunity in his second year. But now he gets to take over a ready-made Alabama team that, is ready to compete.
Yep.
It's built right. I think naturally he has to take it's going to take a little bit of a step back because you're going from a legend to somebody who hasn't. I mean, he's proven himself everywhere, but this will be his biggest job.
Oh yeah, and
This will
he hasn't proven himself on the SEC level.
no,
I
and
mean,
like
let's be honest, it's a different level. It's a whole different ball game. And the slogan SEC, it means more. That's not just a slogan. I mean, if he gets on a little streak, what do you think is going to happen if he goes through a season where he loses, say Tennessee upsets him, and then Auburn upsets him, and LSU upsets them? Those Alabama fans aren't going to be very pleased with that kind of result. So, um,
they haven't had a four-loss season since Saban's first season.
so you know, they're going to expect things to just keep rolling along, and time will tell if it's going to happen or not. I think you've hit on something there where it's just a matter. I think there will be a drop off because
Hmm.
he's not Nick Saban. Nobody will be Nick Saban, but
So
it's how far is that drop? Is it just a little drop or is it a bigger drop to make it, to where they fall back to the pack a little bit more? Who knows? Like I said, time will tell. And um, I think one thing you watch, Alabama notoriously, recruiting front from the rankings for the team rankings, they're top two or three at worst under Nick Saban every year in and year out. I mean, most of the time they're number one. I
well,
mean,
we went over that. It was 8 out of 17 seasons they were number
yeah.
one.
So the majority of the time they're number one ranked recruiting classes
If
coming
they're
in.
not, if they weren't one, they were two or they were three. I mean,
Right.
it
That's
was
what I said. They were at worst third. It just so happens this year Georgia has the number one, and I forget where they came. They might be number two,
they were two.
but and just for the 2024 class, I'm just glancing over and seeing Georgia's got they actually fell behind Texas is two, Alabama's third. So but still, it's still top three, and it's going to be interesting to see if they still have those top three classes coming in year after year after year, or if it falls down and you get a ninth rated team class or 12, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a big difference because when you're talking about top 10 and with the new Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC, if you're number 10 ranked recruiting class, that means in the SEC, you're one, two, three, four, five. You would be fifth or sixth in the SEC.
No, it's not going to cut it.
So, if it's splitting hairs a lot of times, but it will be interesting to watch that and see if where that, how big of that gap that is.
Well, I think um, it's about the quality of classes. So the difference between 1 and 2 and 10 through 12 is the quality of players you're getting. It's a composite score, so it's based on the level of recruit.
And let's be
And
honest too, it's all subjective. It's somebody's opinion
yeah,
to rank these players a certain way. What's even more interesting is the development that they get once they get on campus at these schools.
that's the
And
other part.
you know, who's going to develop them better, Nick Saban or DeBoer? Well, I would say Nick Saban right off the top of my head because I don't know what DeBoer is yet.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting to see, but I doubt he's going to be, you know, of the level that Nick Saban is or was. So if you're
yeah.
getting decent players, but you're not developing them, what good is it really?
True. And I think there's two key things here for DeBoer. Um, how good is this staff? What do they look like?
Yeah.
So the early days of Nick Saban at Alabama and the first 2 years at Georgia for Kirby, the staff wasn't quite filled out. And really it took until Georgia got Todd Monken a few years ago for Georgia to really take the next step. And then we got over the hump, won the first national championship, then won the second one. Then Monken leaves, and everybody's all worried, but Kirby's done a good job of holding on to his staff. And when they've left, he's replaced them with quality, if not better replacements, which is so hard to do. So that's one. What does his staff look like? What kind of staff
Mhm.
does DeBoer put together? Two, um, what uh what type of development, like you mentioned, are these players getting? And uh it's kind of twofold. What where does he end up as far as just roster management in the portal? And I think he's going to be able to relate more to this younger generation than Nick Saban because we started hearing some rumblings about the kids not relating to him as much. DeBoer's younger, so he should be able to. So I do. I think it's a really good hire for Alabama.
I got to
Outside of
go
outside of
ahead.
getting Kirby Smart, who would be obvious choice A plus plus, right? The only way to follow the man is by putting his protege in his place. If
That's
not,
already well established and has shown that
he can do it.
he can do it. So
So
yeah, short of getting Kirby Smart to sign on the dotted line and go back to Alabama.
if it wasn't
Yeah.
him, or if it wasn't Dabo, who those are the only two coaches in college football with multiple national championships and are proven to build a program from the ground up, um, or Dan Lanning, who knows the Saban way. If it wasn't those three, I mean, this guy is gonna be your best bet.
Well, piggybacking on your point about putting a staff together, I saw somebody put out a tweet just today talking about the 2015 Alabama coaching staff. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah,
This is amazing.
yeah.
The head coach was Nick Saban. I think we've heard of him. Offensive coordinator, Lane Kiffin. Defensive coordinator, Kirby Smart. Offensive line coach, Mario Cristobal. Wide receivers, Billy Napier. DBs, Mel Tucker. Linebackers coach, Tosh Lupoy. And then defensive line, Bo Davis. Other coaches that were on the staff, they weren't necessarily position coaches. Dan Lanning, Glenn Schumann, Scott Cochran's the strength coach, and he's now at Georgia. And then Charlie Weiss Jr. I mean, it's just on and on and on. And I mean, and those type of coaches are the ones that get the best out of the players and develop them. That's the reason why Alabama's been so good for so long is uh Nick Saban knew coaches, the right coaches to hire. And I mean, you get a staff like that, how the heck are you going to go wrong?
Well, it's what Kirby's doing now. I mean,
I
read
mean,
off.
you got Lane, Kirby, Mario, Billy, Mel Tucker was a head coach, Dan Lanning.
Is a head coach now.
Uh, I think that's it. So you got one, two, three, four, five, six future head coaches off of that
And
staff.
the seventh will be Glenn Schumann.
Yeah, he will be one day. That's true. He will get one. He's probably just waiting for the right opportunity.
Which I think if they struck out on Dan Lanning, DeBoer, that you weren't getting Kirby. There's, like a 1% chance you weren't getting Dabo. There might have been a 10% chance. I would have called Glenn Schumann
Mhm.
if I'm Alabama because
Yeah,
he
they
understands the
probably
culture.
he probably was on their list. It's just a matter of where on the list.
Just because he hadn't proven it yet as a head coach, that's why you put him so far down the list. But if you're talking about unproven guys that deserve the chance and will be successful, Schumann will be too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
So, um, I just
I
wanted
mean,
to.
there's a reason why he was the first coach that Kirby hired once he became head coach of
Mhm.
UGA. Glenn Schumann was the first one that he hired,
Yeah,
and he's been here ever since. And he's been his right hand man. It's kind of like a little relationship Kirby had with one Nick Saban.
true. And they were together for five national
10,
championships, 10
10
years.
or 10 or so years. Yeah.
So we'll take that here in Georgia, right?
Yep. Yep.
I I do kind of think this just signals that, it's Georgia's time. It's time for you to be the dynasty. Like if you're gonna do it, it's time. Yeah, we're a
Well,
dynasty because we went back to back, right? That's the first, you know, kind of criteria. But now we've got to win multiples over the next several years.
and I think it's definitely possible.
So
The way we recruit and the way Kirby manages his roster, even with the portal and everything like that, we're going to be in a conversation
every year,
every year.
just like
And as
Alabama
long as
was.
we keep executing on the field and we keep replenishing the team with good, talent year in, year out, top classes, the guys, the culture's in place, the program's set up, and it's just a matter of executing the plan that week in, week out, and good luck stopping us.
Right. Just a little nugget here. Quick cool fact on DeBoer. He's 49 years old. Okay. So he's still a young coach. That's young for coaching. Nick Saban just retired at 72. So not everybody does it that long, but you get what I'm saying. He could be at it a lot longer. He already has, as a head coach, 105 wins to his name
From all levels, right?
from all levels. Yes,
I mean, a lot of those were like NAIA level, where he
still,
won. He won like three national championships from NAIA level.
but that's multiple. It's not just one. So he won it multiple times there, and he only has 12 losses. I mean, in 2 seasons at Washington, he had what, two losses? Three?
How many are you saying? How many seasons?
He was there too, right?
I'm not sure how long he's been at Washington. I can't remember, to be
Two,
honest.
two, maybe three seasons, and he has two or three losses. I mean, like that's 11-1, 12-1, 13-1 every year. Um, so I think Alabama's going to be in good hands. They've got to hit the recruiting trail hard. Here's another biggest key that I kind of left out. How many of these guys on Alabama's roster right now does he hold on to? You
Yeah, I mean, and we won't know that until, you know, some of these guys make public announcements. And there's going to be, believe me, there's every school out there has been contacting him since Nick Saban made the announcement that he was retiring, and everybody knew that they had a chance to go in the portal if they wanted to. So, um, I mean, they already had, if I'm not mistaken, they had like 15 or 16 players previously before his announcement already in the portal.
Yeah.
So the one Georgia picked up today from Alabama, he was already in the portal before Nick Saban announced his retirement. So I don't know that anybody, I can't think of anybody that has announced since the that has made their choice since the announcement of Nick's Saban retirement. But it will be interesting to watch that and see if there are more, which there probably will be. I mean, anytime there's a coaching change, there's a whole new dynamic. DeBoer's going to want to put his own fingerprints on the program too, regardless. I mean, he's going into a situation where it almost can't get any better, but he's still everybody wants to do things their own way.
Well, you don't want to mess with it too much, though, like I said,
No,
because
I'm not saying overhaul.
if you
I'm not
mess
saying
it up,
over. I'm not saying overhaul, but you still every coach thinks they can tweak things and make things better in some senses, you know. So um, some of the players may not like the new way of doing things that DeBoer installs rather than Saban had it, the way Saban had it.
let me ask you this and anybody else out there. Um, what does this mean for Jalen Milroe now? That was
It's
Matthew's
very
biggest question the other night.
well. I mean, Milroe's got to think. Well, look at what he just did with Penix. Can he do that with me or for me? Penix had two outstanding years under him.
But they're different quarterbacks.
They are, but every player's different, right?
Yeah.
So the coach has to find the strengths of that player and play to them, right?
Yeah. Or does
It's a
he?
very interesting thought, though. What happens? I mean, that was an interesting thought. What was Milroe going to do? Was he? I mean, it's funny. People were thinking, is he even going to come back? And that was before Saban retired.
Oh, because they got the number one quarterback coming in, Julian saying.
So,
Does he stay? Does he stick around? I mean, I think he should because
well, I mean, all
Caleb's
of those recruits, it's open. That's what I'm saying. It's open season on their roster and their recruits, their signees, and the guys that just signed letters back in December.
so yeah. But like my point is what if you're the quarterback in these if you're the quarterbacks, Milroe saying whoever else is going to be on the roster. I think if you're
Well, I mean,
I think it
offense is his strength, if I'm not mistaken.
right. So
So you
he's
got to feel pretty good about it being on the offensive side of the ball,
right because
bringing him in
Nick
the
was a
defense.
defensive guy who
Right.
really started to lean into offense and quarterback over the last 5 to 8 years.
And it was heavily dependent on who his offensive coordinator was at the time.
Right. So
So
now the
now it's going to
roster,
be the opposite.
yeah,
The head coach is offensive, and he's going to have to lean on his DC to pick up that side of the ball.
right. So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who he brings in on his staff and the players and the current players and signees. I don't even know. I guess we can call most of them current players now because they're signed, but all those guys included, who's staying and who's going. It's going to be interesting to watch.
it's still too soon to tell too, like who's gonna go and who's gonna stay. But like I said, I keep your eye on Milrow, keep your eye on uh any star defensive player, because the the onus, what am I trying to say? Not the onus, but the emphasis rather, that's the word, is not going to be on defense anymore. So if you're an offensive guy, like you said, you've got to feel really good about DeBoer's hire because okay, he's that's what he's known for. Um, and then if you're a defensive guy, do I want the best development for the rest of my career? Try to get to the draft because that's kind of what Alabama's been known for. So it'd be interesting to see how that changes moving forward. But if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm not nervous. I wouldn't be freaked out. I mean, of course, you're not you're just gonna be wary because it's not Nick Saban anymore, and he was a steady, constant thing year in and year out. You knew what you're gonna get. So, um, don't panic, Alabama fans, but at the same time, don't expect to be number one in the conference year in and year out. I mean, I think that's clearly now Georgia's to lose every year, even with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. I mean, we're that I think this firmly slots Georgia at number one in the SEC, barring, you know, a ton of injuries and a huge debacle.
I agree. I totally agree with that.
So, and nobody's really said, I wanted to touch on this too for just a second. What is Nick Saban's role now at Alabama? Have you
Yeah, it's
heard
interesting that he's supposed to stay on in some capacity and still have an office there. And um,
what's his
yeah,
title? What's he doing? I mean, they just didn't even say this
no,
is what he's gonna do. This is his title now. I can't find it out there. If anybody can find it, let me know because I'd like to know and I'd like to analyze that
I think it's
because
fluid. I think it's fluid. I think there's
it's
still
it's
yet to be
fluid.
determined.
As
Yet
Nick
to,
Saban does, it's fluid. It's
yes, it's
fluid.
fluid. It can change. There's no telling exactly what it's going to turn out to be. But that is an interesting little tidbit there too.
I mean, advisor to the AD, advisor to the program, both. I mean,
Just a well-paid consultant.
yeah, and what's he being paid now? I mean, I guess they got to finish paying him his salary because he just did an extension too.
It's all in the fine print. I guess the stories will come out soon enough.
Yeah, just interesting. I'm interested in stuff like that. Like, what are you doing now? But, um, yeah, and I hopefully just last thing on that. Hopefully he's not too much of a shadow over DeBoer. Like you don't want to be such a influence and just be hanging out over the shoulder and just being a distraction from the team, right? Because they have to move forward now.
Right.
The only way,
I
and but
mean,
see, the only way to truly move forward is for him not to be
y-
there or have enough awareness to really take a step back and not give his 2 cents worth all the time. So,
yeah, I mean, it's a delicate balance, right?
yep.
So good luck with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be that guy.
No, I mean,
I'm the
DeBoer,
guy, and now this new guy's coming in. I'm gonna want to tell him how I did it and how we were successful, but you can't do that. You gotta step away and let him do his thing. So,
maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Who knows?
yeah. Any final thoughts before we get out of here tonight? Because I think we've
Yeah,
we've
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 beaten this one to a pulp, right?
no, we haven't beaten it to a pulp, but
No, I mean, it just to reiterate, I mean, it's just going to be fascinating to watch and see how it all develops over the next few months. One with, like we said, who's going to be on his staff. What players is he going to have there remaining? We talked about who's staying and who's going. Well, the other part of that is who is he going to bring in? I'm sure he's got some, if some of the current players there leave, he's got to fill those scholarships, those holes, right? He's got to have enough players. So who ends up coming in to play for him there?
Maybe some from Washington.
Maybe some from Washington that are familiar with him. That's not unheard of for players to follow coaches when they change jobs. So, yeah, just it'll be fun to sit back and watch it from afar and be glad that it's not happening to the dogs.
Yeah, very glad. Just to kind of piggyback on that, when we were going through this transition from Rick to Kirby, there was a lot of excitement because Kirby's Nick Saban's protege. We were
Well, he was
expect
coming back home,
He was coming home, you know, familiar face, and we expected the program to take the next step. Not immediately, but eventually, and it did.
and it
So
didn't. It didn't that first year. That first year,
no,
there was some
it was
tough
bumpy.
losses. I mean, I
Lost
think
to
we
South
lost
Carolina,
we lost 4 or 5 games that year, if I remember right.
5.
So it would, there was some, you know, heavy lifting having to be done to change the program and get it to where it is today.
Well, it was more about changing the culture and the mentality.
Exactly.
We had the dudes. We've had the dudes for years. We just didn't have as many as we do now. So more dudes,
And we didn't
culture.
have near the culture. We didn't realize it, but we did not have
No.
near the culture under Mark Rick is what we do right now. And nothing against Mark Rick. I think he's a great man and love him to death as Georgia coach.
Hmm.
But they're just there was this other level that we could never reach with him. And I don't think it's all his fault. That's a whole different discussion for another day.
Hmm.
But I'm glad looking back on it, the change was made and that we are where we are right now. And it doesn't seem like that's going to let up or slow down anytime soon.
No. So that's all a very, very good thing. So who knows? Alabama fans hang in there. This transition, I'm not comparing, I'm not saying you're going from because you're kind of going the opposite because you're going from a legend to somebody
Paducah.
unproven.
Hmm.
But we kind of went from a Georgia legend to who's going to be Kirby, I think, an all-time legend in college football.
By the time he's done it, it's very possible.
So I'm not equating both of those things, but I'm just saying, hold tight, stay the course. If you're a true fan, you'll be there in the dark days and when it's good. So I leave everybody with that tonight. Appreciate everybody tuning in as always. I think I kept peeking at our viewership tonight. I got somewhere around 8 or so at the same time viewers. So we're steadily just having these
Creeping up,
we're
up, up.
just creeping up and the numbers keep creeping up. So we definitely appreciate that a lot. If you like what we're doing, definitely like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications like Matthew would turn on the notifications, man, because you just never know when we're gonna go live. There's so many cool things happening, so much going on, breaking news all the time. So you never know when we might get on here and just recap something that happened or what have you. So definitely still having a lot of fun, super excited to be doing this. This is cool. So thank you guys. Y'all have a good night. Enjoy your weekend. Watch some football. And we should see you again on Sunday. So, as always, Go dogs.
Go dogs.